All right, start stream, start record. Let's see what happens here.
YouTube breaks.
Yeah, of course it would.
Oh, my hair's sticking up now. There we go.
You look fine. Gosh.
Oh, wait, I don't think I have the right amount of blush.
Welcome to... God, what the hell is my channel name? God, we're off to a great start. Welcome to Craft Computing Talking Heads, Episode 1. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined by my buddy Rhett. I was on his podcast a couple of months ago, and I was his very first guest star on his podcast. So I figured might as well have you for my first guest. Welcome.
Thank you kindly.
All right. First off, what are we drinking tonight?
Well, allow me to start here. I am drinking... I'm embarrassing myself here already, but I'm drinking the Evil Twin, Yin and Yang from Contract Brewing. It's a black and tan. It's an Imperial IPA mixed with an Imperial Stout. It's a solid, I think, 10% or some.
Yeah, it's a heavy beer.
Oh man. Yeah, it's God, it is 10%.
Yeah, it's 10%. Yeah.
Jeez. But so far, delicious. I love stouts. Not the biggest IPA fan, but I love stouts and I like a good IPA. So, and I used to go and get a black and tan with like a pale ale and something else back in the day when you would like literally just take two separate tablets and mix them. You know,
yeah, kamikaze it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so far so good. When I get a little lower, we'll revisit it. Just a quick check out.
I am having a Base Camp from Four Hands Brewing Company. It's a red ale double, and it's actually aged in saison barrels. Quite delicious. And not to be outdone, this is a 10.5%. So we're both kind of going for heavy hitters tonight, it seems. Really
it's been
good.
One of those weeks. Like,
yes.
It's Tuesday. It's been one of those weeks.
For those of you who don't know, the Northwest is kind of in the middle of a heat wave right now. Salem, where we're from, just set a record. I think we are 11 days over 90 degrees, and they expect us to go to 14. We're not used to this kind of crap down here, or up here, depending on where you're at.
Well, and then the worst part is not only that, but like the day the heat wave started, it kicked it off with like 108-degree day.
Yeah.
And there has been smoke in the air from these wildfires in the Northwest every day since.
Yeah, I think there are almost a dozen active fires in Oregon right now, which is not unusual for us, but it's unusual for the smoke to hang in the valley.
Yeah.
Usually this time of year, we are 85 degrees, we're blue sky, maybe a little bit of smoke kind of on the horizon, but and then we're 0 to 10% humidity during the summer. We have absolutely glorious summers. This August, we have been averaging, I think, 105 or 106 degrees every day. We're at 75% humidity. It's just miserable. If you live in that part of the country, this is not a dick wagging contest. We're just not used to this. It is miserable here.
It's a little miserable. And then combine it with like my usual dress, which is long sleeve shirts.
Right.
Like, I mean, I own T-shirts, but for some reason, I never put them on. And, it just makes for sweltering days.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it. Kind of some big news going on this week in hardware. Obviously, Threadripper is coming out, I believe, on Thursday is the release date for that. A lot of benchmarks starting to leak out. I guess Dell Alienware released some Cinebench numbers for a stock Threadripper. And Intel, not to be outdone, has countered by releasing their lineup for the Core X series, their new X299 boards. This is direct from Intel's newsroom. The new 12, 16, and 18 core CPUs were announced. We've got the i9-7940X, the 7960X, and the 7980XE. If I'm being completely honest, I'm a little underwhelmed here. When they're trying to compete, when they're trying to give a counterpunch to what AMD's been delivering and the hype behind that, we knew these chips were going to be a little bit rushed, and we knew they were probably just going to be rebadged Xeon chips when it was all said and done. The 7980X has a base clock of 2.6 gigahertz. They say it turbos to 2.4, but on the official Intel spec sheet, it will only turbo to 3.4 across all its cores.
So why are they saying that it's higher than it can?
Because it will turbo to 4.2 on 2 of its cores. So if you have a dual core workload, it will go to 4.2. Usually if something's multi-threaded, it's going to use everything. It's either going to use 1 or 4 cores, or it's going to use all of your cores. And I'm a little underwhelmed by a 3.4 boost clock. And at 165 watt TDP. And they're having a hard time keeping the 7900X under wraps. It's getting up to 85C stock without overclocks, with a lot of water coolers and air coolers and whatnot. I can't imagine what stuffing 8 more CPUs into that package is going to do. And the best part about this, $2,000.
The first place my eye always goes, no matter what, to the price point.
Yeah, totally. Literally double the price of a 1950X Threadripper chip, which, for those who don't know, is a 16-core, 32-thread beast from AMD with 40 megs of cache. The Intel chip only has 25 megs of cache, and it's looking like too little too late. I mean, Intel, my theory on Intel is they really forgot how to compete over the last 10 years, because I don't know if you remember hardware history from 1998 to about 2007. AMD was kicking Intel's butt and taking its lunch money.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat them to the 1 gigahertz mark, which was incredible. And then from there on out, all the way through 2007, when Intel started pushing their dual-core chips, it was AMD all the way. And then AMD, somewhere along that way, decided, we don't want to compete at the high end anymore. We want the $100 CPUs. We'll let you have the $400 CPUs. And so Intel just kind of went on this tear for literally the last 10 years, where they didn't have to do anything at all. Again, AMD came out of the gate swinging, to their credit. I mean, Ryzen was just released in March. This has not been a long time.
Oh, boy. It feels further away than that.
Yeah.
Longer than that.
No, we're literally only 4.5 months into the life cycle of AMD's first generation Ryzen chips. And we're 2 days away from their first generation enthusiast chips. But like I said, along the way, it seems Intel really forgot how to compete. They forgot that people like to upgrade their systems over time. I've bought enthusiast platforms for the last 15 years for my home systems. I am more than happy to shell out $1,000 on a motherboard CPU combo. I've done it before. I'll certainly do it again. I'll probably do it when Threadripper comes out. Yeah. But that being said, I want to buy into a system that in another generation of processor or another die shrink or whatever else, I can upgrade that system and I can run it for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, I ran an X58 system for almost 6 years, and it was an absolutely solid system. I went through 2 CPU upgrades. I went from an i7-920 to a 930, and then later I got a Xeon chip, a 5690X, which was a 6-core chip. But you know, the changing the socket every single time they come out with a new processor, the scraping the features out of their lower end chips. I mean, if you look at the X299 chips, the entry level chips for an enthusiast platform, the 7800X is still $389 at a 6-core chip. It only has 28 PCIe lanes. So does their 7820X, which is an 8-core chip, 28 PCIe lanes. You can't even run 2 X16 graphics card slots at full bandwidth, let alone NVMe, let alone PCI Express Wi-Fi, let alone RAID cards, let alone video capture cards. You are out of bandwidth unless you siphon it off to the chipset, which a lot of these are doing. X299, I believe, has 24 PCIe lanes on board, but you're still limiting all that bandwidth to a single pipe. Threadripper has 64 PCIe lanes directly connected to the CPU. And there are boards coming out. I believe MSI released a board. They've got 4 PCIe X16 slots. They've got 4 1X slots, 3 NVMe slots, a dozen SATA ports on it, and they're still not out of slots. Yeah. And you can use them all at full speed all the time. So, I mean, pretty incredible what AMD is doing. I mean, literally a couple of days into the game.
Yeah.
So,
pretty impressive stuff.
On to benchmarks. I don't know if you've looked at any of the benchmarks that have come out. Intel decided they would tout their Cinebench scores. And this was on Engadget earlier today. Oops, as it changes tabs on me again. Hold on. I'm sure this is riveting entertainment as I fumble through tabs here. Intel released that the 7960X, which is their 16-core chip, which is the one that's supposed to directly compete with Threadripper 1950X, scored a 3200 on Cinebench. And it's not clear whether that was overclocked or not. I'm guessing that was stock speed. They usually don't like to publish overclock results. But 3200, that's an astounding score in Cinebench. The Ryzen R1800, I believe, is scoring somewhere in the 1600 mark. So double what a Ryzen 1800X is doing. AMD counterpunched by letting Dell release their Cinebench scores. The Threadripper 1950X, under stock conditions and really thermally throttled. I don't know if you've seen the results from the Area 51 Dell machine.
No.
Apparently that one's getting up to 85C because they decided to put Threadripper on a single 120 mil radiator with a closed loop cooler. And it's just not happy. It needs more cooling than that. So shame on you, Dell, for releasing that system like that.
That's what they always do, though.
Oh, totally.
Just rig their systems to underperform.
But anyway, underperforming and overheating as it was, it still scored, I believe, a 2887, which is not too shabby. However, there was a thread earlier today on Reddit, of all places, where someone had posted a overclock result from a 1950X running at 4 gigahertz. And I will switch to that now. There we go. 3277. No. Yeah. So Intel released their numbers at 3200 for their 16-core chip. AMD beat them blow for blow. So single thread performance to single thread performance, they are matching or besting Intel in this performance benchmark. Absolutely incredible. I mean, it's like I said, we are very early into this game. There's been no optimizations for either platform yet. You got to take early benchmark results with a grain of salt. But if this is legit, that's a solid score. And I'm hearing reports that Threadripper will actually overclock all the way to like 4.2. It's getting better overclock results than the 1800X was. So
go AMD.
Go AMD and $1,000 and a cheaper motherboard because you don't have to pay licensing fees to Intel. And you get PCIe lanes and you get everything about it is better.
You know, I think AMD's strength has always sort of been these, you know, the enthusiast machines, the gaming machines, people who seem to know their way around a computer by AMD. Whereas Intel has sort of always had like brand recognition. You know, like any old Joe Schmo off the streets, they could be like, oh, Intel, I know Intel.
Right.
There's the old factory up the street. Like, you know, like guaranteed, like in the Northwest, we all probably have, you know, one family member or two who have worked for Intel, you know.
Yeah. We live down the road from them.
Exactly,
they're just up in Beaverton.
So, but it's interesting because here's AMD just coming out, man, and that's amazing.
Yeah, coming out swinging and beating Intel at their own game. I mean, this is Intel has dominated the CPU market from top to bottom for literally the last decade. AMD's gotten a few good processors in there. A lot of people have mixed feelings about the Bulldozer release, you know, their first 6 and 8 core chips that they released, which were kind of 6 and 8 cores. They were really 2 cores that were kind of glued together and shared bandwidth. So it was, but all that aside, you know, they did all right in the budget space at the $140 CPU price point. They've never competed with Intel in the $300 price point, let alone the $8,000 and $1,000 price point.
Yeah.
And to come out swinging like this is absolutely awesome.
Good for them. I'm excited to see what else that they unveil because that's just...
totally. Yeah. And I guess AMD EPYC made its first appearance the other day too, which is their server and workstation line with 8-channel memory and ECC support, 32 cores, 64 threads on a single die. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that again, there's no numbers for that yet, but we're kind of waiting on bated breath for those to drop.
Wow.
So, yeah, Thursday, I believe, is the end of the embargo day, so we'll start to see some official benchmark numbers coming out for the platform, official overclock numbers. I'm really excited to see what they're going to bring to the table here. And I'm really curious to see what Intel's response has been, because so far they're kind of running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to release. They're trying to play the game that they've played in years past, where, again, there's arbitrary limitation of lower end CPUs by either cutting PCIe lanes or cutting cache or cutting whatever features out that they feel need to make the point or make the cheaper price point. And AMD is saying, no, screw it. Even AMD's 8-core Threadripper chip, which is coming out at $550, still has 64 PCIe lanes, still has quad channel support.
Good.
I mean,
good.
Yes.
It's just going to be a wake-up call for Intel.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get a little bit more competition with a little bit more innovation. You know, and hopefully they keep pushing that line. Because I don't think that it's been stagnant by any means over the last 10 years. But I think this is like the first real sort of freaking head-to-head competition.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, I remember...
Do you remember the gigahertz race, the original 1 gigahertz
Yes.
race? I actually looked up numbers on this earlier. Let me see if I still have those up. I think I do. I do. Haha. This is a magazine article from Maximum PC. I looked this up today. This is the original 1 gigahertz race. So remember that they use slot A for their original 1 gigahertz Athlon CPU.
Geez.
And again, from 79 to 1997, Intel owned every single major performance benchmark. They were the first to every clock speed. Then and actually all the way till 1999. In 1999, AMD kind of hit the Pentium through the sucker punch and beat them to 650 megahertz. That was August 1999. From August 1999, they went from 650 megahertz being the absolute best processor you could buy, even on the server level. There was no differentiation of levels back then. It was one chip and that was it. So August 99, AMD releases the 650 megahertz AMD Athlon. In March 2000, 6 months later, they released the 1 gigahertz AMD Athlon.
That's a big jump.
That's a big jump. And if you go back just a couple more years, May 97, the best processor you could buy was a 300 megahertz Pentium 2. So from 1997 in May to March 2000, we jumped 700 megahertz. We jumped threefold in CPU speed.
That's amazing. You know, I remember the first like real computer that I had, well, done any sort of work on. It was just some sort of, I think it was like a Walmart HP. And it was right in early 2001, and I did have a gigahertz processor in it, and I remember that just being like the best.
Yeah, oh, totally.
The best. And also it was like right in that same era, like maybe I remember this wrong, because I mean, I was a little young back then. Time blurs a little,
things over. Yeah.
Plus, it's been almost 2 decades.
Right.
So
no, it hasn't. What are you talking about? That was like 6 years ago, right?
Let's take a step back into the time machine. Oh my God. So yeah, there was this big like tsunami over in Asia and like in the Philippines and like Micronesia area, where it wiped out a lot of the factories that made RAM. And so like DDR RAM like was just obliterated for like a year or two.
Yeah.
And the only thing you could buy was, I think, SD RAM.
Yep. Well, there was SD RAM. There was also Rambus memory.
Rambus.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Rambus. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was SD versus Rambus. Yeah.
So I had Rambus in this thing. And if you remember Rambus, it could only work in pairs.
In dual channel. That's right.
Oh my God. Upgrading.
It could only work in dual channels, and a lot of boards had 4 slots. Now, if you had 2 memory modules, you had to have 2 dummy modules in the other 2 slots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot all about that. And you know, the weirdest part is, I wish I could remember the exact the exact amount of RAM that I had because I remember going to like my computer technology class or whatever it was and telling my teacher was like, I have 760 megabytes of RAM or something. He's like, how does that make any sense? And I remember when you look at it because it's like, let's see. So how did it work? I probably
you would have had two
256
and two 128s.
Would that equal?
Would have given you 768.
768.
Yep,
that's what it was. And everybody thought I was just like full of garbage.
Yeah.
Because
there's no way. I've got 128 in my system, or 96 as it was.
Right. But I remember going and buying those 2 sticks of 128. I went to some local shop here in Salem. Oh my God. It cost me an arm and a leg. But well worth it. I mean, there was a pretty significant little bump in performance.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
Especially back then, like
a buddy of mine, and if he's watching, he'll actually find the story funny. And this actually relates back to our Ryzen talk. I was hired at my current company in 2007. When I was hired, my coworker's home system that he built in 1999. He built during that 1 gigahertz race, and he had a Pentium 3 850 megahertz with 512 megabytes of rambus memory. So, but he had that system, and if you go 1999 to 2007, he had run that system for 9 years, or about eight years and change. So I ridiculed him mercilessly about that system because what can you even do on a Pentium 3 in 2007? I've got a Core 2 Duo at home. First-gen Core 2 Duo. You know, I've got 2 processors running at 2.4 gigahertz. What are you doing? An 850? Can you even get online? Oh my gosh, you're running Windows Millennium. It was a terrible machine. And I believe he originally bought it with 2 128 rambus memory, and then I think he added two 256s. So he ended up with the 768.
Yeah. The weirdest number for RAM.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, just what?
Yeah. So anyway, I ridiculed him mercilessly for that system because that system, 8 years on, could not perform any modern task, couldn't run any modern game, couldn't even run a modern operating system at that point. Because remember what a Hog Vista was for memory and CPU speed. I stayed on XP for a long time. Yeah.
The same machine I'm talking about that I had in like 2001.
Yeah.
I later put a GeForce 3 into it when the GeForce 3 came out. And I would take this machine to LAN parties. And I remember like running I can't remember which 3D benchmark it was, but when the GeForce 3 came out, it came with these like 3D benchmark or like these 3D tests that you could run.
Might have been 3D Mark 2001. I believe they had a benchmark out around then.
That might be right.
Yeah.
And I remember like just looking at the graphics being like, oh my God, this is amazing.
The way we look at Firestrike and superposition today is we were looking at basically Quake trying to render in 640 by 480 going, this is amazing. It looks like real life.
And I would play Quake 3.
Yeah.
And it would struggle. Like, you know, it would struggle. I'd get like 25 frames or something like that. But, dude, I brought that thing to LAN parties until 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And I remember it got to that point in its lifespan where I literally just had to take the side off the case because the thing would overheat. The thing like wouldn't run. I couldn't figure it. And I think it ended up being like a cable problem with my power supply. But there was like at one point where I even had to lay it physically on its side for it to even boot up.
Nice.
And I should have just like probably replaced the power supply at that point. But everybody would come and be like, oh, there's old Rhett with his thing.
Hold on, let me boot her up.
Oh, gotta do this thing. Oh, here we go.
Meanwhile, the lights are dimming. Yeah.
You know, and I remember, I don't know why. This is the only thing I remember about this computer, but my buddy, his name was Sergio. He showed up with this just like, this computer he had spent, I remember like he got his tax return back and it was like $2,000. And it all went into his computer.
Yeah.
And the damn case had wheels on it. And I remember just thinking, like, what, did he drive that thing here? Like, what the heck? And it was huge.
Yeah.
Back when, like...
the old super towers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a super tower. Oh, my God. Anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt
How many CD burners do you have in there? 6?
Yeah. I got to make sure, because back then, you know, game pirating was a big deal.
Oh, absolutely.
And before, and I don't even think he had DVD drives. I think they were all CD drives and CD burners. And that way you get your one game, you burn all 6 CDs at once.
Just pass them out at the LAN party. That's what we did with StarCraft. That's what we did with Warcraft 3.
Oh, God. Yeah, the big games we used to land back then, it was like Quake 3, StarCraft Brood War, obviously.
Yeah.
And, God, what was the other big one?
Jedi Knight.
Oh, my God.
little Jedi Outcast.
We did, Jedi Knight 2.
Yeah,
oh, my God. I totally forgot about that. And also, we went on this binge one time where we showed up at a LAN party. I'm pretty sure the only thing we played was like Worms World Party or something like that. It was just like, oh, my God.
So anyway, wrapping back up to 8-year-old system.
That was quite a tangent.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. 8-year-old system cannot perform in 2007. I ridiculed him mercilessly for 2 years about that system. And he ran that system until 2009 when the pressure finally got to him. He finally cracked. And he went out and bought an X58 i7 930, threw 12 gigs of RAM in that thing, and I believe a GTX 260.
But see, at that point, was he running Vista? Because
he was running Vista.
Vista didn't even allow for 12 gigs of RAM, right? Like
no, it did if you ran the 64-bit version.
Oh, the 64-bit version. Yeah. See, that was a problem I ran into when I upgraded. I was like, Vista sucks.
Yeah, yeah. If you went 64, which XP64, we don't talk about that one.
No.
But Vista 64 was actually, I'm going to get ridiculed for saying this, actually an okay operating system. But if you ran 64-bit, you could run, I believe, actually 32 gigs of RAM on the consumer version.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it wasn't shabby.
Well,
no, it ate all of that
long before I could get 64-bit freaking chip. So it was like. Yeah. I was poor.
So anyway, he built an i7 930 with 12 gigs of RAM and a GTX 260. He did the same thing that he did with his Pentium 3. He is still running that system today. With one upgrade, he upgraded the video card to a GTX 960. 8 years on, so 2009 to 2017, he can still run modern games.
So he future-proofed himself a little bit.
He future-proofed himself, but if you look at that same scenario 10 years earlier, that system was dead in the water. He should have upgraded that thing 4 years prior.
Yeah.
And my point is, today he can still play GTA 5. He can still play Rise of the Tomb Raider. He can still play Metro Last Light. He can play any game he wants. Maybe not at 90 frames per second, but they'll run, and they'll run quite well. They'll run well above 35, 45, 60 frames per second sometimes.
Wow.
That's what competition does for the growth of CPU hardware. It really is. Because if you look at the time period that he built that original system, it was Intel, AMD sidestepping each other the entire way. And really, it ran like that for a number of years, until about 2007 when Intel leapfrogged and then didn't look back. But the market really has, stagnated, and we're also seeing better optimization in software. We're seeing better future-proofing and better backwards compatibility support
which is huge,
for older hardware.
Because,
but that doesn't take away from the point that we were moving at such a tremendous pace 8 years ago because of competition that his system would have been absolutely obliterated by any modern standards. Today, if I tell you I have an i30 or an i7 930, a GTX 960, and 12 gigs of RAM, you go, okay, you could probably play GTA 5 at 45 frames a second.
Yeah, good for you.
Right. It's an all right system.
I guess you have money.
Right. What are you rocking, Rhett?
Let's not go there. I'm like way behind the curve anymore.
Let's see. The system we're streaming on is that 6-core with 32 gigs of RAM. So.
I've always been, and this is both a point of pride and a point of regret. I've always been like not even half a generation, because you look at what I'm running now, and my desktop died, and I never upgraded. I started using my laptop, and I was like, wow, my laptop CPU is more powerful than my desktop CPU, and I didn't know it. Oh geez. But I'm always a generation, 2 generations behind. And it's nice because, I was telling you this the other day. I finally, to my shame, upgraded my graphics card, GTX 580.
Yeah.
And
he upgraded to a 580, I should say.
I upgraded to the 580. That's a big difference to make. And but I finally, because it was I wanted to play some games that required DX11, and my old GTX 9800 didn't support DX11 at all. and I could run a couple mods to like make these games like DX10 compatible.
Yeah.
But at a severe just like punch to quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I finally made the plunge. Found a buddy of mine who I play games with online, and he was like, I guess I have this old card. Like, if you just want to buy me a game on Steam, like I'll mail it to you.
Nice.
So I bought him Counter-Strike Global Offensive for $15, and he shipped it to me from Canada. And I haven't looked back. I can run all my DX11 games.
That's
now.
awesome.
So
it's great to have friends like that.
I know. Yeah, he's just like, this has been sitting in my drawer of my computer for like at least 2 years.
Yeah,
it's useless to me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go ahead and buy me Counter-Strike Go. Hold on one second. I'll throw that in the mail for you.
Well, and then the best part was, I was like, can you put some padding on that? And he's like, no. In fact, I hope it breaks in shipping. So I get it in like literally an envelope. And it's like, you know, the back panel that like sticks out the back of the tower was like all bent and stuff. I was like, all right, I'll straighten that out. This is still good. I can salvage this.
Ting, ting.
Oh, but it works like a charm. And
you put it in your Athlon 1 gigahertz, right?
No, I have. I do have a 5-core, 2.8 gigahertz CPU, so it's quite bad.
Yeah,
but step up from my old dual core system.
Right. Nice. So let's see. You were involved in a game dev.
A game jam.
Game jam.
They call it, yeah.
Yeah.
So game jam.
Yeah.
This is what's fun about game jam. So anybody listening, I only recently got into game development. Buddy of mine, this is like weird. Humble Bundle runs software bundles sometimes. For anybody who doesn't know, they're my favorite. I don't buy games on Humble Bundle usually, but they have software bundles.
I do. HumbleBundle.com. Get it. It goes to charity. It's a great value.
Well, and that's when I do buy bundles. I'll buy them. I'll buy like the top tier, and I'll make sure all of my money goes to charity.
Yep.
And I feel really good about it.
Yep.
And actually, lately, I'm tangenting here, but I have been subscribing to the Humble Monthly, like.
I haven't done that yet, but I keep meaning to.
Oh, dude, there has been some great games. Yeah. Recently, just got this game, Pillars of Eternity. Have you seen that?
I've seen the trailers for it. Yeah.
Oh my god! So how this game slipped past me, I have no idea. I have sunk like 30 hours into it, and I just started playing it like Friday night.
Yeah. Wow.
It's so good. It's made by Obsidian, who it's all the original dudes who, they created like Fallout and Icewind Dale.
Yep.
And Obsidian later went on to make KOTOR 2, which is my favorite in the series.
Absolutely.
And then they also made New Vegas, which arguably the best Fallout game.
Certainly the best dialogue.
And best story and best plot,
absolutely.
Like everything.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with KOTOR 2. It's like KOTOR 1 was great. Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But KOTOR 2, like, had some really good character development.
Yes.
And anyway, diverting there. But Pillars of Eternity has the feeling of these classic RPG games like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights, while having, so it has a classic feel and look, while having like all of these modern ideas, I guess. Like I remember playing Dragon Age Origins or even Mass Effect, where between the main missions, you go and you talk to your teammates and you develop their quests that way. And each teammate has kind of like their own individual quest that you can partake on. Anyways, Pillars of Eternity has that, as well as a lot of other things. And so I'm playing this. I'm like, this is a modern game, but it feels like I'm freaking 15 years old again. Like
feels like 1998 playing black and white. Or
yes, exactly, exactly. So anyway, I went on a tangent there, but Pillars of Eternity was in the latest Humble Monthly, which is a subscription bundle, much like Loot Crate, much like Blue Apron or whatever. You pay a small monthly fee. I think
PlayStation
like
Now
$12.
for you console weirdos.
Whoa.
That crossed some lines there.
I have a PlayStation 4, and it served me.
I have an Xbox 360. That's where my console stopped.
I got an Xbox 360 for free. Used it a lot, and then I wanted to play No Man's Sky. I know, like everybody can ridicule me now. I want to play No Man's Sky.
I paid full price for it.
Me too.
On PC, but I paid full price for it.
4. I was there at launch. I bought it, went home, played it. I still love the game. I had a blast. Sue me.
Yeah.
God, all these tangents. Anyway, so Humble Bundle came out with a software bundle that was geared towards game development, and it had a game engine called ClickTeam Fusion, which if you've ever been on Steam, you might have seen this game called The Escapists. It was made with this game engine, which really intrigued me. I had no idea about it. Apparently, it's very user-friendly, very easy to use. So I bought this, and I bought all the other tiers with it, which came with some like paint programs, Pixel Edit, Marmoset, Hexels, version 2, which is like my favorite paint program out there. And anyway, I bought it, and I just offhandedly, I've been good friends with Taylor since high school. And I mentioned it to him, and I said, you know, there's this game dev bundle. I know you're kind of like into coding and that sort of stuff. Like, maybe you should take a look at it. And he goes, I didn't know you were into game dev. And I said, yeah, like, I'm not, but I am.
I'm interested in it.
Yeah, I said, it fascinates me because I know I'll never be able to do it. And he goes, you know, there's this course on Udemy. And anybody who doesn't know Udemy, it's basically like an online, you know, you can purchase classes that are basically videos or whatever, and they come with this whole community that you can exploit to learn certain skills. I've only ever used it for coding and things like that and computer stuff. And he goes, there's this course on Udemy. It teaches you how to use the Unity game engine, which is super popular right now, especially for mobile games. But well, Pillars of Eternity, made on Unity. And he goes, and it might be good because, like, to use Unity, you have to learn to program using this language, C#. And I said, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I've always wanted to learn program, but I've never known where to start. I've tried to learn JavaScript. I've tried to learn all this other stuff. And he's like, well, why don't I teach you a little bit of C# and we can go from there? And he bought me this Udemy course. I started learning how to use Unity, how to code in C#. We started a podcast together. And we partook in our first game jam like several months ago, and it was a climate game jam. And we made a game back when we weren't good. It was like avant-garde, and the whole point was to not play the game. You're presented with one option. That's the game, to play or not to play.
I lost the game.
Yeah, I did too, because you want to see what happens.
That's right.
But the whole point is like you watch this iceberg melt as you play. And the only way to save the iceberg, stop playing. Stupid. It's the dumbest idea ever. But anyway, we just hosted our own game jam this last weekend, and it was called the One Mechanic Game Jam. And the idea being, you think of a game, an idea, something you can do with one game mechanic. Easy example of this is like an infinite runner. Like Google Chrome has one. Whenever you're disconnected, you see the little dinosaur. You can press space, and all of a sudden this little dinosaur starts running across the screen, and you press space to jump over obstacles. Perfect one mechanic game. There's a billion other examples out there. But so we created a post on this on itch.io, which is where people post simple games that they make. And we had a bunch of people sign up for it, but only a few people completed. And it was a 48-hour thing. And so the goal to make a one mechanic game in 48 hours. And sure enough, we sat down, we made our own game. And it was a lot of fun. We decided to use the Hexels. You know, I don't know if you saw the video or anything like that.
Yeah, I checked out the video.
We tried to paint it in a unique way because everybody's doing pixel art right now. We thought, I got this Hexels. Let's paint some Hexels and see what we can do. And it's pretty janky. But
if you want to see how janky, I'll go ahead and link it down in the description.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Once I post this video.
That'd be great. But you got a castle on one side of the screen with cannon on top, and you basically control this. You move the cannon up or down to point, and then you click. That's all you do to play the game. And you shoot a cannon, and these ships, enemy ships, there's 3 different lanes. They spawn heavy ships, medium ships, light ships. And they come at you, and you shoot this cannon, and if they hit you too many times, you lose. I've never been able to get past 1,000 points. You get points when you win the round, and you get points if you win the round with extra cannons left, because there's a set number of cannonballs. Anyway, my brother got past 10,000 points the other day, and he's like, "I'm just gonna stop because this is getting boring." I'm like, "What the heck?" Like, now I have to go in and figure out how to scale difficulty even more because I created the damn thing and can't even get past 1,000 points. So what the hell? But anyway, it was a lot of fun. Anybody who's interested in game dev, challenge yourself in those small little ways like that. Create something small and easy that you can create in a weekend. And just have fun with it. It's not the last one mechanic game jam we're going to do, so keep your eye out for that. We had a lot of fun, and the response was really positive. And some people created some really fun games. One guy created this game where you basically have 4 lanes, and it's like in a cross. It's like a cross like this, and right in the middle is, I guess, you. Yeah. And as you play, these circles come down the lanes going towards the center where they intersect, and you have to press an arrow key. If you want to find it, you can go to...
is it on itch, or where's it at?
Yeah, go to itch.io.
Yep.
Search for One Mechanic Game Jam. Hopefully it hasn't been taken down yet. Oh boy.
There's a lot on there. Let's go.
Oh, maybe if you click on Game Jams and you can search there.
Game Jams, here we go.
This is just riveting.
Yeah, you watching me read a screen.
It happened on August 4th.
One Mechanic, there it is.
There it is, GDQ, One Mechanic Game Jam.
Game Dev Quest, by the way, is the name of his podcast, and I'll also link that in the description. It's on iTunes and
Stitcher,
and
I might even be on Google Play, like pretty much any platform where you can find podcasts. So anyway, here's the 3 ones that we had, and this is the one I was talking about. Protect the green box with arrows, and you literally just press the arrow keys as these balls get closer to your square. That's it.
Nice.
It's fun, but it's also hard. And if you press an arrow key before that gets in,
so you're moving the green box to get out of the way, kind of Frogger style?
No.
What are you
the
doing?
green box is stationary.
Okay.
The balls are coming into you. And there's basically like a little, I guess, like end zone. And when they cross that line, whoop, you press left. You press right, up, down, or whatever it is, wherever they are. Sometimes you're just like left, right, up, down, like really fast, or down, 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 or whatever. And you pop the circles. And if they get to you, they start doing damage to you. And if you press a key before they're within that end zone, you do damage to yourself.
Oh wow!
So it's weird timing. It's really fun.
Yeah,
we played it for like me and Taylor were trying to beat each other like for 30 minutes, just like, oh my god, I got to 100. Can you beat 100? A lot of fun. Really simple, one mechanic game.
Very cool.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is the one that you created, the Castle
Master Faster Blaster.
That's right.
Yeah, it was...
excellent name, by the way.
Thank you. Well, I can't take credit for it. It was named by a Twitch streamer named Krasenstein.
Okay.
And he had watched us while we were putting the finishing... we were like up against the clock on our own jam. It's like, uh-oh, we got to do some extra work on this.
We'd better get something posted here.
Yeah. And Krasenstein came on, and I guess he's a pretty big Twitch streamer. I've seen his channel. And he's a pretty popular guy. And he came on, he's like, why don't you just call it Castle Master Faster Blaster? And it was like,
that is a solid choice.
Why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely not going to be the last one. We'll probably do one, probably not once a month, maybe every other month, something like that.
Yeah, very cool.
You can check out, we'll post it always on the game jams on itch.io. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, as I hear about them, I'll post them in my video descriptions, or if we're talking about something relevant. Again, his podcast is excellent. I'll say that because I was on it a couple months ago.
Oh yeah.
So
that was a blast. We had so much fun doing that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they were Rhett and Taylor were both virgins to VR, and so they both experienced it firsthand here in my studio. That was actually one of the reasons I needed to build the workstation, which you can find in my first video. Here I am plugging things as well as you do.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of the VR thing, I will say I've been super happy with having a system that is behind the curve a little bit. But as VR becomes more and more accessible, and the price window comes down, I'm like, all right, the price window's coming down.
Yeah,
maybe it's time for me to upgrade.
You can get an Oculus Rift with the touch controllers for $399.
I saw that. We talked about that on Game Dev Quest. That is nothing. That is nothing. But I still think I'd want to get the Vive.
Yeah.
But the Oculus Rift for $399.
Yeah. No. I do prefer the Vive, but at the same time, it's half the cost of entry right now.
Yeah.
For the Oculus Rift. And I backed both Oculus Rifts on Kickstarter. I had the DK1 and the DK2.
You're a very dedicated VR fan.
I am very dedicated, and I'm not into development at all. I just wanted the dev kit to play with. That's all I wanted it for. And they had an early version of Half-Life 2 that was VR capable with the Razer Hydra controllers that were out. That was an intense experience, and we're starting to get some experiences like that. some things like Super Hot and
Dude,
and
Super
a couple
Hot was
other.
so fun. They're so fun.
Super Hot and Gorn are what I find myself playing most often right now.
Yeah.
So those are awesome games.
I was trying to convince a buddy of mine to have a party here because those of you who don't know, we're recording in Jeff's VR studio right now.
That's right. This VR studio, I actually haven't gone over what my studio is to any of my audience yet. I've mentioned I have a studio, but that's about as far as it's gone.
That might be the perfect segue.
We are upstairs of Capital Tap Room, 150 High Street in downtown Salem, Oregon. Capital Tap Room is a bar, has 32 taps on all the time, and probably the most unique beers in the valley.
Easily. And I don't say that lightly. Anybody who follow my garbage, which you're not, if you're watching Jeff's stream right now, you're probably like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
But one of my old podcasts used to be sponsored by Gilgamesh Brewing, and I love Gilgamesh. Their beers are unique.
Unique's a good word. Unique's a good word.
Now, I won't say that they're going to be, I won't say a lot of the choices that they make will lead to like extreme commercial success,
right,
because they're just, some of them aren't that great.
Yeah.
But they're super unique, and I applaud them for this. But Capital Tap Room, I shit you not, the best curated tap room, I think, in the Mid-Valley. I think it's better than any curated tap room, even in Portland.
Yes. I would second that, not just because I leased the studio space from John, who's the owner, but 32 taps, and it's not just Oregon IPAs. It's not just...
No, that's the best part. I come here because it's the tap room I can go to that isn't 20 IPAs.
Right.
And some Pilsners and lagers or something?
Right, yeah, and we don't tap Bud, we don't tab Miller, we don't tab anything like that. It's all craft breweries, dedicated craft breweries that meet the criteria of a craft brewery. And if you don't know, get online research about it. That there's a quantity limit on how many kegs you can produce in a calendar year and still be considered a craft brewery. Yeah, I reached that point before you did. I've already got the problem.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I call it a problem, but I don't have a problem. So, it's...
Alcohol is a solution.
That's right. Technically speaking, yeah. Anyway, if you come to Capital Tap Room, there's always a porter, a stout, a barrel-aged beer, a couple IPAs, a lager. There's a couple of beers from Germany on here all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, we have a 19.7% mead on tap.
The only place I've ever had mead on tap.
Yeah.
See, Capital Tap Room is the place I can come in. I can see any of their bartenders behind the bar, and I can say, pull me whatever you're feeling like.
Yep.
And I will like it. That's the screwed up part. And I'm picky.
Yeah.
I'm picky, but this is the one place I can come. They could pull one of 32. They could literally roll a D20. That doesn't work. They could flip a coin. They could just point, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And
pick a number between 1 and 32.
Yeah. Or they'll just come in and be like, well, it's the 15th. Here's number 15.
That's right.
And I'll almost always I've never had a beer here and been like, this is garbage.
I've had a couple that are garbage, but I've been coming here a little bit longer than you.
Those are the pumpkin beers that he was just like, well, it's fall. Time to get the pumpkin spice crowd in.
We don't speak of the pumpkin beers.
Oh, we are right now.
John thought it would be a terrific idea to go, you know what? They do the pumpkin spice latte. They do the pumpkin spice everything.
Yeah, Capital Tap Room just overrun with white girls.
That is not our target market. I want 20 kegs of pumpkin beer. And he literally went out and bought 20 kegs of pumpkin beer.
Oh, I know.
At the end of October, we had 19 kegs of pumpkin beer left.
I mean, not Dan. John would like me sharing this, but
yes.
We tried this failed.
Oh, your vlog.
At a beer vlog, and we had his buddy Dan. Come on, right, Dan? Yeah.
Yeah, Dan.
Ratchet Brewing.
Yep.
Dan, John came on, I came on, and our good friend Kane Miller.
Yeah.
And he thought, hey, these guys podcast. Dan knows about beer. We'll talk and we'll rate these beers. And it was really great. Except, I thought, how can we lose? Free beer. Except he only gave us pumpkin beer all night. And he's like, well, we got to kill this keg. So how many do you guys want?
Yeah.
It's like,
do you want another of that pumpkin beer?
Yeah, it's like literally we'd finish him and he'd be like, don't stop now, boys. Yeah. And I was like, where did you get all this pumpkin beer? And he's like, failed experiment. Don't ask me.
Yeah. And by the way, John wanted to vlog the whole thing with a 360 camera and then use it for advertising. But John came into the video
I'm
podcast.
sure he loves this being
4 beers deep.
It was more than that because he went to what's the beer festival that happens around then? Like October, November, like.
I don't remember what it is.
Oh.
There's a couple that happen in Salem.
Was it one that might have happened in Silverton at that point? Like, either way, it was some sort of like Oktoberfest Brewers Festival or something.
Yeah.
And he had gone out and had a good time before coming in, and we were just like knocking him back. We were here till past closing. It was just like, yeah, we'll have to redo all these episodes.
Yeah,
thanks for the beer.
This is not usable. So
I'm glad that footage isn't out there because, like I said, I mean, free pumpkin beer. I don't like pumpkins, but
I'll drink free beer. I rarely will turn down a free beer. Don't ever buy pumpkin beer again, though, John. If you're watching, I'm sure you'll watch this at some point. Don't do it.
Don't buy pumpkin beer.
So,
unless it's one of them was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
but I don't remember what it was, so it doesn't count.
It doesn't matter. So. All right. Well, we've been on for about 15 minutes. I figured we get on to the other breaking news, which is Vega launches in 4 days. RX Vega. So Vega's being met with a little bit of disappointed on expectations, I think, because for the last year and a half, AMD has been competing with the GTX 960, 1060 kind of range of cards, the entry-level, enthusiast-level cards. And they go, well, these are performing really well, but wait for Vega. Vega's just going to blow your socks off. That's been the mantra. Wait for Vega. Well, we've waited. Vega's here. And it turns out to be Bulldozer Part 2. And again, I'm waiting for official benchmarks. I really hope I'm wrong, but we've already seen Frontier Edition, which is their $1,000 workstation class card, which is just the same card as the $500 Vega 64 that's coming out. And yes, it goes blow for blow with a 1080. I applaud you, AMD, for actually getting a competitive card out after a couple years of really nothing. But the problem with going blow for blow with a 1080 is NVIDIA came out with the 1080 Ti and the Titan Pascal. Not only that, but the GTX 1080 is a 180 watt TDP card, even overclocked. I've got a GTX 1080 at home. It pulls 210 watts. When it's like really, really cranked under like synthetic loads. Under gaming loads, I see like 170 running 2100 megahertz on it. The problem with Vega is it's stock a 300 watt card. It is almost double the power draw, and for very little benefit.
How did they get to there? Like,
I don't know. I know they tried something different with the architecture, and I am not up to snuff with my video card architecture. I know they tried something different, and to their credit, it works, and it works quite well. It's very fast. The problem is it's $500. It competes with NVIDIA's card that they released a year ago, which NVIDIA has already refreshed literally twice with the 1080 Ti and the Titan Pascal. It's just, I hate to call it a flop because they are pricing it competitively. It's going to be priced about the same as a GTX 1080. They've also got the RX Vega 56, which from early benchmarks, again, none of these are official. By the way, this is the only show I'll ever address rumors on. I just want to make that clear. I'll never do it in a normal video, but here we're just kind of shooting the breeze. Hey, this is kind of a cool thing that looks like it might be fun.
Well, rumors are the best, thing to gossip on. So.
Absolutely, and that's all we're doing here. Anyway, the rumors of the RX Vega 56 is that it actually does beat a GTX 1070 for the same price point at $399 or $700 if you're an Ethereum miner. So I'm really hoping the benchmarks come out a little bit better. Oh, and the RX Vega 56 is also only a 210 watt TDP, but again, you're competing at 150 watt TDP of the GTX 1070. So not as big of a disparity, but still you're drawing 60 watts more power, and that power turns into heat, and that heat's got to go somewhere. I'll be curious to see what custom cards come out for Vega, what cooling solutions may work or may not work. We'll all have to kind of wait and see. But Vega launches in 4 days. And like I said, bravo for AMD for competing in the high-end CPU spectrum for the first time in over a decade.
Yeah.
And bravo for actually getting Vega to market and being competitive with what you thought was going to be NVIDIA's top dog when you were advertising it.
Well, I think it sets a good precedent for what we might see in the future. You
absolutely.
Know? So that's one thing. We got to give it to a little bit of benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Just to see. So.
Yeah, and I'm really trying to. I mean, honestly, every single graphics card update and refresh, I do flop sides. I'll go AMD one year, I'll go NVIDIA the next. I had a 9800 GTX Plus in my X58 build. I had 2 of those in SLI. When I finally upgraded, I went with an HD 5850. From there, I think I had a 660 card for a while. Then I had a pair of R9 270s, and now I'm running the GTX 1080 with an R9 390 thrown in the mix somewhere in there. So I've gone through a number of video cards on both sides of the fence here. I did avoid the whole R9 Nano and the R9 Fury. I just couldn't deal with drawing 400 watts into a video card.
Too much.
Which is probably the reason I'm going to skip Vega 64 is I can't see after overclocking drawing 400 watts to a video card.
Well, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So.
Right, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't. I mean, again, maybe benchmarks will be wrong. Maybe this thing is just an overclocking killer, and it goes way above what the 1080 will do in performance. And yeah, it's going to be a space heater, and either your power bill is going to go up, or you don't have to heat your house in winter.
Hey, sounds like a bonus to me.
Oh, totally. That was just money I was throwing away anyway.
Yeah.
Might as well put it in my computer. I'll tell that to my air conditioning bill for my.
Oh God, I know. I pretty much. That was like one of the big things that killed my desktop back, like whatever it was, 2 years ago. Just it was June, and it was like the first 90-degree day of the year, and just did my computer in.
Well, I think it's the reason I glossed over my R9 390 is I killed that one with heat as well.
Yeah.
I had tried a little experiment with water cooling, but not a full cover water block. I cheaped out and I went with the partial cover water block, but then I didn't have an intake blowing on any of my VRM or my memory, and that will start a fire, ladies and gentlemen, by the way.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah, if you're going to get a partial cover water block, make sure you put a fan on your VRMs, or at least the little dollar heat sinks from Amazon. You do need them. There's a reason those are actively cooled. They don't like 125C.
I just love you found it out the hard way.
Yeah,
in the story.
I've killed hardware, and that's what you do when you're an enthusiast and you do it for so long. You're bound to kill something.
Yeah.
What's your worst hardware kill story? I think we'll finish with this.
Oh, something similar. I mean, I literally had. God, I'm having difficulty to remember. It was back in like 2003. Mm-hmm. I literally had a CPU catch fire at one point.
Wow.
Like just flames.
Uh-huh.
My computer was dirty.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I learned the importance of spraying it out every now and then.
Yeah.
And I did overclock. It was like my first foray into overclocking. CPU just.
Yeah.
Flame came out of the middle of it.
Yeah, that is excellent. I've caught a couple computers on fire. There was one that I used to work in a wood shop way back in the day. And over Thanksgiving break, I never got the opportunity to clean the machine that ran our CNC mill. It sat in an enclosed box and ran 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And during the workday, was being tasked for 14 hours a day. There were 2 operators that ran the machine, and they would both use it the entirety of their work shift. So anyway, on Thanksgiving break, I told my boss, I'm going to go and take this thing home. I'm going to give it a proper cleaning. I'm going to take everything apart and blow it out. Well, I got it home, and I plugged it in, and I wanted to make sure it still worked when I got it home, make sure I hadn't jostled anything loose. And about 3 seconds after I turned it on, a giant blue and orange flame, probably about 2 feet long, shot out the back of the power supply from all the accumulated dust. And again, this thing was never power cycled, but for some reason, me taking it home, shutting it down, powering it back up, jostled all that 10 years of sawdust loose, and the power supply caught fire, and I literally had about 2 feet of flame shooting out the back of that thing.
God.
So that was a fun trip. The other one, I was actually building a system for my sister-in-law. And it was one of the CPUs that I've never owned personally. And it was an Athlon 3000 Plus, and it was the 754 socket. I had lusted over that processor. I wanted that chip so bad. This is like circa 2005, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be her Christmas present. So I talked to my wife, and we were the whole family was going in for a computer for her. So I ordered all the parts off Newegg or wherever it was at that time, get them all in, and I'm putting everything together. And again, who actually anti-statics themselves? I usually will, I will ground myself to the case, and I will call it good. Standing on carpet, setting the motherboard down on the carpet.
You shift across the floor in your socks.
Right, totally. Wearing socks and booties and
oh, God, this sounds like it's gonna be great.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm putting the machine in the case, and I've just got the motherboard in my hands, and I set it down, and I feel this, and I feel the shock like go through both hands, and I went, oh man. And so I set it down. I'm like, it probably didn't hit the motherboard. It was probably just me arcing through. But I had already installed the CPU, and it was already in there. Oh, I fried both the motherboard and the CPU of a brand new $350 system.
Oh no!
Yeah, and that had to come out of my pocket because the whole family had gone in to buy a computer for her, and yeah.
And so now you're always like just.
Yep.
Touching the nearest.
Grabbing metal while you're, everything. I still don't go full wrist strap. I've never had a problem with it before or since. But
ironically.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Yeah, so that's probably the worst one I've had.
I told you about this, weeks ago, probably right around before I had you on the podcast. But one of my first, after I had that CPU, like literally like a candle flame coming out of the middle of it. Afterwards, I wanted to experiment with liquid cooling. So I had this old fish tank.
As one does.
I had this old fish tank. I went to the store, bought a couple gallons of vegetable oil and filled it up. Put the motherboard and CPU and everything in there. And
so you weren't just doing liquid cooling. You were doing full oil submersion cooling. That's other level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This was amazing. And of course, I did the research. I knew power supply had to go up here. Hard drive had to go up here. So I took a little 2x4 and just stretched it right across. And I mounted these to this 2x4 over the top of this, over the top of the vegetable oil fish tank. Yeah. Anyway, we were overclocking this thing like you wouldn't believe. And it was just an amazing increase in performance.
So sorry, tangent. What era was this? What CPU kind of range were you looking at?
I can't remember the exact specs, but this had to have been 2005.
Okay, so you were probably like a P4 Extreme Edition kind of thing.
Right around there.
Yeah, and actually...
It was around that time, yeah.
Around that time, I was actually running one of the Celeron 2 gigahertz chips on a 478 chipset. And I don't know if you remember much about those. Again, sorry for the tangent. You could overclock a 2 gigahertz Celeron to 3.8. And some people were putting them on liquid and getting like 4.5, 4.7.
Yeah.
And this was 2005. So single threaded performance, 4.7 gigahertz.
Well, this was definitely an experiment of the caliber. It's like, let's see what we can do before we wreck this. Well, before we figured out how far we could overclock these things, we learned the hard way about balancing not CPU, power supply, and hard drive and all this stuff. And one day, I was like, what's going on? The power supply had like just slipped off this thing, and I had mounted it pretty well, just right into there while it was running.
Yeah,
just done for. It was like, oh great,
nice.
Oh, luckily salvaged the hard drive, which was, like I said, this was sort of a budget system that we had all chipped in money. Vegetable oil actually, can conduct way more heat. So we did vegetable oil.
That's
and
right.
Sure as shit. Sure as shine. Sure as not a swear word. The performance was like, actually, I remember quantifying it. We had like spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And I swear vegetable oil was like a whole like 75 to like 95% better in terms of like overclock performance.
Yeah.
I mean, it was significant.
Yeah.
Oh, so.
Very cool. Well, I think that's a good place as any to kind of wrap this up. Rhett, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you to anyone who's watching. And if you didn't catch the live show, I will be posting this here in the next couple hours. Yeah, Rhett, you're not used to being on video, are you?
I'm not. No, I was like doing things with my hands. I was like, I can't do that. And then there was other times where I'm just like looking at you and I'm like, I can't just stare.
Oh, totally.
So I'd like start nodding and be like, yes.
I don't care about those people. I'm kidding. Watch the show. I really appreciate it. So anyway, thank you for joining me. This isn't going to be a regular feature for a little while. I'm just trying to get the feel of the live show, get the feel of kind of a video podcast thing. I'm hoping to do more of a regular event maybe later in September, but I think this was a pretty good trial run.
I think so too.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to call it quits for tonight. I'm out of beer, so I got to go get another one. I don't know about you.
It's about that time.
It's about that time. So thank you, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.